Right, so Labour Party disciplinary proceedings under Keir Starmer. Goodness knows if you are or have ever been a Labour Party member since he took over, you'll be aware of a bit of purging going on at the left, all under the auspices that you rotten lefties are all antisemites and we're going to clean up the party by getting rid of all of you. In the name of fixing the disciplinary picture of the Labour Party, Starmer brought in a new independent appeals process consisting of an independent review board along with an independent complaints board. Two different boards, very similar names. What's the gist of this then, Damo? Well, the word independent in both of these boards is doing a lot of heavy lifting because by independent they mean not in Labour. It doesn't mean in the slightest not without skin in the game, not without an agenda of their own, especially when it comes to the issue of anti-Semitism and the weaponisation of it thereof. The Independent Complaints Board was appointed back in 2021, and despite inviting nominees from across the Jewish spectrum, if you like, politically speaking that is, all the places went to representatives or were the pick of the Board of Deputies of British Jews and the Jewish Labour Movement. They basically were handed a veto over this process by Keir Starmer. People who have watched my content on this subject before will know that the BOD is basically a conservative-leaning right-wing group purporting to represent all Jews, but does not. It's estimated they represent about a third of all British Jews, if that. And the Jewish Labour Movement requires neither membership of the Labour Party nor the need to be Jewish yourself to be a part of it. It was also heavily criticised in the recent Ford report for its poor methodology in educating people about anti-Semitism. To put the places on this panel being awarded as such in the way that they were into perspective somewhat, candidates that failed to get selected were all of those representing Jewish Voice for Labour, where you do actually need to be both Jewish and a Labour member to be a member of, and other notable recommendees for the post, such as Oxford University Research Fellow and Jewish Forum for Justice and Human Rights founder member Brian Klug, anti-Semitism and Israel-Palestine conflict specialist, the author Anthony Lerman, Labour councillor and former chief rabbi of liberal Judaism, Rabbi Danny Rich, and former Sheffield Labour councillor and pro-Palestinian statehood advocate, Adam Hurst. So Starmer basically shunned expertise in favour of factionalism and in favour of those who have continued to weaponise the issue. In my opinion, that makes the party more racist these days, not less. So we have this independent complaints board filled with those chosen by pro-Israel interests. So now it comes to complaints being made. The independent review board reviews complaints. According to Labour's own website, the independent review board will have a pool of 6 lawyers working in rotation and will review all disciplinary decisions involving complaints involving protected characteristics that are made by panels of the NEC Complaints and Disciplinary Subcommittee. The lawyers will have the power to either veto or verify decisions made by panels of the NEC Complaints and Disciplinary Subcommittee. If a determination is vetoed, a newly constituted panel will be convened to determine that particular case, and that decision will then be subsequently reviewed by a lawyer from the Independent Review Board. The Independent Complaints Board inserts the second element of independence into the party's complaints process. The Independent Complaints Board's role is to hear complaints involving protected characteristics and to determine appeals brought against the decisions taken by the NEC in respect of complaints involving protected characteristics. The Independent Complaints Board will have 12 members, 4 lawyers, 4 HR or regulatory experts, and 4 Labour Party lay members. They will sit as panels of 3, 1 from each category, with the lawyer acting as chair to hear and determine cases. Now, since this process came in, 69 cases of expulsion of a member have been appealed. This has caused consternation because all 69 cases have been upheld. A 100% appeals failure rate. Now, in 62 of those cases, the lawyers upheld the decision, but in 7 of them, they felt the complaint by the member had some chance of success. So the complaints were then escalated up to the National Complaints Committee of the Labour Party. Yet, despite the legal advice that these 7 cases had some merits, that the NCC upheld each and every single one of those cases. There's a further 95 cases still to be reviewed as we speak. With the former Momentum-backed NCC chair having been ditched in 2021, now replaced by an Akehurst faction Labour to win drone, this might come as a little surprise. What you have to realise as well is most of these expulsions were not anything to do with racism either. Most were due to having belonged to a group Starmer later had banned. People who had attended such a group at some point in their past, before it was banned, and had basically been thrown out as undesirable now to the new Stalinist regime. Naturally, Akehurst isn't fazed by these events in the slightest. He's delighted by this 100% failure rate. If you'd listened to him, you'd think Labour had got the best judicial system going. Perfect even. with nobody getting through, despite most not actually guilty of anything except falling afoul of a Starmer rule change. He tweeted out, "This should be reassuring, as it shows the original NEC panel decisions were robust and fair, as they have been upheld by independent lawyers saying no grounds for appeal, or an NCC panel hearing but rejecting the appeal." No, it just sounds every bit the witch hunt that a lot of these groups pointed out to and got them prescribed, because nothing is less believable than a system which has never made a mistake. No judicial process is perfect, but then this process isn't really about justice. All this additional scrutiny, all these lawyers now involved, though. How much is this costing, you might be thinking? Well, when you consider the NCC are elected volunteers and they did all this work before, when they were deciding all the complaints, it cost the party nothing effectively, the members' time given willingly. But now, Labour are spending some £2 million a year on legal costs. That's the annual affiliation fee of Labour's biggest donor, Unite, being spent twice over. And for what? A purge of the rotten lefties that right-wingers want gone and are excusing under the umbrella of fighting anti-Semitism. Labour is a truly sick organisation now, and when their own members are under control like this, and when right-wing pro-Israeli parties have such influence now, how much would they have over the country if you put Starmer in number 10? Think about it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. If so, please like, share and subscribe to the channel for more. Meanwhile, here's another video to whet your appetite until next we meet, where another commenter on this issue, cheering the disciplinary procedures results here, Mike Katz of the Jewish Labour Movement, got his backside handed to him recently, and I'll hopefully see you on the next video. Cheers, folks.